Hey there, it's Susan Pierce Thompson and welcome to the weekly vlog. I am here on location about to shoot some intros and outros and splicer inners for the Food Freedom video series, which is going to be re-released this fall. Stay tuned, that's super exciting, mid-September-ish. But while I'm here, I thought I'd shoot the weekly vlog. And this is one I've been thinking about for a while. The topic is bright line eating a cult? Is bright line eating a cult? People talk about it as a cult, jokingly, and I wonder if some people talk about it as a cult in all seriousness. And I'm actually fascinated by the topic of cults, and I thought it would be a really good idea to kind of take the question at face value and really examine, is bright line eating a cult? So there are 6 criteria for a cult that I'm going to compare bright line eating against in this vlog. And the first criterion is that it's a group of people that have a deviant set of beliefs. Like, what I mean by deviant is just statistically deviant, like different from the norm of society, right? Now, there are groups of people like, let's say, Christians, who have a set of beliefs of, Jesus died and then he rose from the dead and 3 days later, on and on and on, right? And that isn't perceived to be a cult because that group, in America at least, is actually percentage-wise, just Christians in general, the dominant percentage of people in America, if you look it up, right? So it's a group of people who believe a set of things that's dominant, that's deviant from the norm, statistically speaking. Okay, so by that criterion, is bright line eating a cult? Well, it's nuanced, okay? We do have some beliefs here in bright line eating, but if you look at the sort of fine print of this criterion, cults always have a set of beliefs about the biggest things, right? The existence or nature of a God or supreme being, the way the universe came to be, the way Earth came to be, a set of life principles that one must believe in and follow, sort of more on the order of religions, right? And bright line eating says nothing about any of that, right? We have a set of beliefs about how food impacts the brain that are deviant from what most people in society know about. But, oh, by the way, we also provide references for that, right? So that's not very cult-like to say, like, here are the scientific references for what we believe, and we're willing to update our beliefs if the science changes. So that's like pretty anti-cult-like, actually. So, I also just want to point out that having deviant beliefs around food and weight from the dominant culture might not be such a bad thing, right? There's this great quote, Jiddu Krishnamurti said, "It is no measure of health to be well-adjusted to a profoundly sick society," right? And with, I guess it's 42.4% of Americans now obese, 70%, more than 70% of Americans overweight or obese, and other countries like places you wouldn't expect, like Norway, at 70% overweight or obese as well, you start to think, well, gosh, maybe the general typical beliefs around food and health and weight aren't serving folks, right? So a deviant set of beliefs that people follow. Yeah, bright line eating has that, but not really in the ways that matter to make it a cult. Okay, criterion number 2, a bunch of super zealous followers. Okay, we just have that. We just do. And I think that this might be the way that family members talk about bright line eating in just as a cult. Like, basically they're saying, yo, you're really into this bright line eating thing. And it's a little creepy, in my humble opinion, right? I think that might be, and that might be kind of fair. I mean, not everyone has experienced what it's like to have a really, really bad food and weight problem, self-esteem problem, life problem because of said food and weight problem, and then to go through a transformation that lasts a relatively short period of time in the span of your whole life, and to be completely like reborn because suddenly you're not trapped in a body that hurts all the time, that's carrying all this extra flesh everywhere you go, the equivalent of pounds and pounds of potatoes or cement. You see people taking pictures of like them carrying the weight that they've lost, right? And what it used to feel like to carry that weight around, to suddenly feel confident, to suddenly feel like you can move, you can dance, you wake up happy in the morning, to have your mood lifted. So yeah, set of zealous followers. Criterion number 2, check. We totally have that in spades. So the third criterion is the followers rigidly conform to the set of practices or beliefs, right? With like straitjacket-like precision. This one's kind of nuanced because bright line eating does sort of advocate that in certain ways, right? There are good scientific reasons for that. We're dealing, many of us, with a bona fide hardcore addiction, and we provide science to sort of back that up. That's scientifically true. And when you're an addict dealing with a drug, right, sort of strict adherence to a protocol of recovery is kind of a good idea, just sort of medically speaking, right? Like let's follow the recipe for recovery strictly. That said, as early in the bright line eating process as the bright line eating boot camp, and not even the end of the boot camp, so we're talking like 7 weeks in, I'm already prescribing the formula for deviating in ways that you see fit. Like, here are the 4 questions to ask yourself if you want to modify your plan in whatever way to see honestly whether it works for you, right? We call it the 4 questions, and they're things like, you know, after you try this deviation, do you still feel peaceful? Is it messing with your weight? Is it escalating? Stuff like that. And so we do have a bunch of people who just follow the fabulous plan, just follow the effing plan, right? And they've got like, you know, necklaces, JFTFP and all that. So sort of people who are really on the bandwagon of rigid conformity. And then we've got like a whole bunch of other people who are like, yeah, I don't do it the way Bright Line Eating says to do it, and I'm still a bright liner. And we celebrate those people too. We actually create special interest groups for them to sort of band together and do it the way they do it. And so I would say, like, if you really look at the nuance, we don't really meet the criterion for rigid conformity because we provide so many sort of licensed, celebrated, institutionalized ways to deviate in any way you see fit, which is kind of the opposite of a cult, right? A cult really, at every turn, continues to pull people back to the narrow party line and would never create a process by which people can deviate in any way they see fit. And actually, in the later programs, like after the boot camp, programs like Reboot, Resume, and so forth, the main message that I'm touting is individual responsibility for your own program, for your own choices, trying any experiment that you see fit and seeing if it works for you. I say things like, I never deny anyone their research. There's no bright line eating police. And these are sayings that are like institutionalized in our culture, just to remind people that they're self-responsible for their bright line eating journey. And the whole message is sort of to pull them back to the truth of their own experience. I always say, be a scientist, run the experiment, right? So I don't really think we meet that criterion of rigid conformity to a set of beliefs or practices. So criterion number 4 is going to make me blush, and that's kind of fun because almost nothing makes me blush. It's a charismatic leader. And I think this might be another way that people lovingly, jokingly talk about bright line eating as a cult. What they're often sometimes saying is, you're pretty into that Susan Pierce Thompson chick. And okay, fair enough, like we have that. We have had so far in the first 6 years of bright line eating one voice above other voices that has been loud and strong. And you know, we have had guests on the vlog and stuff, but I put out the vlog every week. You expect to see my face and so forth with some deviation, but not much. And people do turn to me as like the authority, both on the team from a business perspective, like, what are we doing, Susan? Now that's fair, I'm the CEO. That's actually the job description of a CEO of a company, is the person to set the vision and sort of the strategic plan. So that's not that creepy or cult-like. That's actually best business practices. It's someone's job to do that. That's actually my job. But in the community, people do it too, and probably more than is necessary or healthy, right? Because really what I'm supposed to be doing is like looking at the science and looking at the aggregate of experience in the bright line eating world and making a call. But the coaches and other people on staff and so forth and other people in the community are now at this point just about as able to do that as I am. Again, like what I said before about the frequency and sincerity with which I and the people on the team are reminding people, you are self-responsible and don't actually abdicate responsibility of your program to Susan Pierce Thompson or anyone in Bright Line Eating is remarkable. Like, we really are continually handing back agency, authority, and ownership over people's Bright Line Eating journey to themselves. Like, really, you own it. So run the experiment yourself and then answer your own question. And that's the kind of answer that coaches on coaching calls for Bright Line Eating and so forth give over and over and over again. Find your own voice, listen to your own truth, and work your program accordingly. The fifth criterion I'll loosely call a financial soaking. So cults have a way of extracting an exorbitant amount of money from their followers. And some people might say, see, Bright Line Eating is a cult. Your programs are so expensive. I knew it. As of right now, the Bright Line Eating Bootcamp is $497. It's $497 after that to join Bright Lifers. That gives you a year. And then the investment for Bright Lifers goes down by $100 a year after that. So $397 the next year, $297 the year after that. We do have some programs that cost as much as $997. I'm not saying everyone can afford that. And I'm not saying that that's not a lot of money. What I am saying is, unlike a cult, we provide documented value for those courses that we offer. And we're really lucky in that there is a medically established value for what we offer. According to medical best practice for clinically significant weight loss, if you can help someone lose 1 pound of weight and keep it off, that is worth $500. The Bright Line Eating Bootcamp, therefore, has a medically established value of $6,500 to $8,000. We have published data showing that people, on average, do not gain back a single pound that they have lost in the Bright Line Eating Bootcamp. As a matter of fact, on average, they continue to lose for 6 more months, whether they sign up for Bright Lifers or not. After that, if they have signed up for Bright Lifers, they will never regain any of that weight out to as long as we've now tested. We've only been around for a few years, so we obviously don't have lifetime data, but we have several years of data now, which is unheard of in the weight loss world. So according to medical best practice, we are providing value that is several times more, probably an order of magnitude more than we ask people to pay for our courses. And if you ask people who've been through our programs, our satisfaction rate is 95%. That's just for the bootcamp. 95% satisfied, almost all of them very satisfied, like highest level of satisfaction rating. So we're not soaking people because we're providing value for the courses that we offer, and there's no other financial investment. As a matter of fact, most of what I provide in Bright Line Eating is free. A free weekly vlog, free food freedom education video series, all kinds of free webinars that educate people on all of the courses that we offer, 2 books that you can get from the library that have the content of our programs and courses and food plan and everything in them so that someone can get it at almost no cost or no cost if they get it from the library. So yeah, we just don't meet the criterion for financially soaking people. Okay, the final criterion. Cults separate people from their friends and their family and their communities in really horrible ways, like extract them from their loved ones and build ideological and physical walls of separation. Not literal walls, but sometimes literal walls of separation between people and their childhood friends, their family, their friends in the outside world. Bright line eating doesn't do that. As a matter of fact, one of the things that we recommend people do in lieu of eating excessive food is go to social gatherings and pay more attention to the people. Go to Thanksgiving, love on the kids, sit next to anyone who's isolated or alone and ask them questions. Like, we give them so many tools, strategies, approaches for reconnecting with loved ones. Now, this one's also nuanced though, because it is also true that people who live with or are extremely close to people who do bright line eating experience sometimes a very painful change in the relationship after someone starts to do bright line eating. Because if the person's really excited about their bright line eating program and following it and really transforming, their eating changes, their sleeping patterns change because their circadian rhythm gets a lot healthier and a lot different. They're now involved in this community that they really, really often love and are spending a lot of time staying connected with. Now, this has benefits for the individual. Their depressed mood elevates. We have data showing massive, statistically significant benefits in mood and in social connectivity within a few weeks of starting to do bright line eating. But for the other people in that person's life, they might feel now isolated and on the outs. And so that might be another way that someone says, hey, this bright line eating thing is a cult. Subtext, you're now spending all your time with them and I miss you, right? And I have a vlog that I just shot quite recently on how to talk with a spouse or a loved one about bright line eating that addresses steps you can take to reconnect with someone who's really not happy about your bright line eating journey and is really in various passive aggressive ways expressing what's really truly a deep missing you and a loneliness and an isolation. So there is some nuance, right? Bright line eating can take people away from their family if the person who does it is super zealous and not careful about finding ways to reconnect or to share life without necessarily sharing every bite of food the way they used to. So I think the net is, no, bright line eating is not a cult. I have heard from people in the community that some reclaiming of the term can actually be helpful. Like, I know someone who's a bright lifer who just says to all her friends and family, hey, do you want to see the latest thing that came out for my cult? And she just shows. So you could call it a cult if you want, but in actual reality, bright line eating is different from a cult in some really critical and important and identity-based ways. We're not treating people with the droid-like conformity and disrespect and dishonor that a cult would, require or inculcate. We're just not, right? But we do have a lot of zealous followers. So I'm sure this vlog will get Google searched a lot because people will be wondering, is bright line eating a cult? Happy to have provided some thoughts on the subject. That's the weekly vlog. I'll see you next week.